Welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into the life of Cass Elliot, the unforgettable voice of the mamas and the papas. While her music brought joy to millions, her personal life was filled with secrets, struggles, and a relentless battle with societal expectations. From unrequited love to shocking revelations, her story is both heartbreaking and inspiring. Let's explore the incredible yet complex journey of this music legend. Cass Elliot, the unforgettable voice behind some of the biggest hits of the 1960s, carried many secrets during her lifetime. Perhaps the most significant was the identity of her child's father, a mystery she took to the grave. It wasn't until years later that her bandmate Michelle Phillips revealed the truth, shocking fans and adding another layer to the already complex story of Cass's life. As the breakout star of the Mamas and the Papas, Cass's on-stage success masked a life filled with personal challenges, heartbreak, unrequited love, professional setbacks, and a relentless battle with her self-image. Cass was the breakout star of the folk rock band the Mamas and the Papas, but her incredible on-stage talent hid a deeply tragic personal story. Her life was filled with unrequited love, embarrassing career mistakes, secret heartbreaks, and dangerous diets. Her struggles with her self-image haunted her up until her very last performance, leaving behind a myth that still lingers today. Born Ellen Naomi Cohen in Baltimore, Maryland in September 1941, Cass grew up in a family of Russian Jewish immigrants who faced financial difficulties. Cass Elliot's family background had a big impact on how she saw life and her drive to succeed. She was the daughter of Russian Jewish immigrants, growing up in a household where culture and survival were tightly connected. Her parents worked hard to provide for the family and taught Cass the value of resilience. Financial struggles were a constant reminder of the challenges ahead, but they also pushed Cass to aim higher and overcome these difficulties. Despite these hardships, she always seemed destined for something greater. She had a radiant personality and immense talent, but also personal demons. From an early age, she struggled with her weight and the stigma attached to it. In high school, she found a supportive community that allowed her talents to shine, developing a passion for theater and performing. She chose the stage name Cass Elliot, reportedly drawing inspiration from actress Peggy Cass and a friend who had passed away. This new identity gave her the confidence to take risks, and she did just that. With her true talent discovered, Cass dropped out of high school and moved to New York to chase her dream of becoming an actress. Broadway didn't welcome Cass with open arms. After losing a role to the then unknown Barbra Streisand, she shifted her focus to singing, hoping music would be kinder to her than theater. Unfortunately, she would soon discover that the music world wasn't much gentler. Between 1962 and 1964, she formed two bands, the Big Three, and later, the Mugwumps. It was during her time with the Mugwumps that she met Denny Doherty, the man she would love deeply and follow wherever he went. But in a twist of fate, her romantic hopes were dashed. Even though Cass was in love with Doherty, she found herself married to another bandmate, James Hendricks, in 1963. The marriage wasn't based on love. It was a practical arrangement to help Hendricks avoid the draft. Knowing the marriage was a mere formality, Cass saw her only real connection to Hendricks through their band. But after just 8 months, the Mugwumps disbanded, leaving her to strike out on her own. She hoped Doherty would follow her, but instead he joined the New Journeymen, a group that included John and Michelle Phillips. Desperate to be part of Doherty's new venture, Cass was willing to do whatever it took to join the band. While Doherty had turned her down romantically, largely due to her weight, he couldn't deny her musical talent. He knew that Cass was the missing piece the New Journeymen needed. John Phillips didn't want Cass in the band because he thought her voice was too deep for his arrangements. Publicly, he said her voice wasn't right for the New Journeymen. Privately, though, he focused more on her appearance. Phillips felt Cass was too heavy for the group, which was a huge blow to her already fragile self-esteem. Cass faced harsh beauty standards throughout her life, especially in an era that idolized thin women like Audrey Hepburn. Despite being rejected by Phillips multiple times, Cass was determined to be part of the band. She wanted to get closer to Denny Doherty. Michelle Phillips later revealed that Cass followed the band everywhere, but they treated her cruelly. They ordered her around, made her serve drinks, and even let her rehearse without allowing her to perform. Cass Elliot's struggles with body image were exacerbated by the unforgiving beauty standards of the 1960s. The entertainment industry, like society at large, favored women with thin, delicate frames. Figures like Audrey Hepburn epitomized the ideal of the time. Cass, who had always been self-conscious about her weight, found herself constantly compared to these icons. Throughout her career, she faced harsh criticism for her appearance, both from industry professionals and the public. She often felt that her talent was overshadowed by her size, and this contributed to deep insecurities. Despite the success she achieved, Cass privately battled with feelings of inadequacy, turning to extreme diets and fasting in an effort to conform to society's expectations. The pressure to fit into these narrow beauty standards ultimately had a lasting effect on her health and self-esteem. However, Cass's luck was about to change dramatically. The new journeymen were more focused on enjoying themselves than on their music, often spending their money on substances. Eventually, they ran out of funds and had nowhere to turn, except to Cass. Desperate for a place to stay, they showed up at her Los Angeles home, and Cass saw this as her chance. Reportedly, she used their desperation to her advantage. Whether John Phillips liked it or not, he had to agree to let her join the band, or they would be left without a roof over their heads. But there's another version of how Cass ended up in the band. According to this version, it wasn't their financial troubles that brought her into the fold, but rather a strange twist of fate. The story goes that during a trip to St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands with the band, Cass was hit on the head by a falling pipe at a construction site. This supposed head injury miraculously altered her voice, allowing her to hit the higher notes John Phillips had been searching for. Many believe that this bizarre story was Cass's way of covering up the more painful reality. John had fat-shamed her out of the band. Years later, insiders revealed that Phillips didn't want the public to know that his resistance to Cass joining was based on her appearance. Whatever the truth, Cass finally became a member of the group. After some late-night brainstorming, they renamed themselves the Mamas and the Papas. With Cass's unique vocals, the band produced massive hits like California Dreamin' and Monday, Monday. Yet even though she had secured her place, the teasing about her weight didn't stop. Things only got worse for Cass. John and Michelle Phillips, along with Doherty, made fun of her weight through their song lyrics. In their hit Creek Alley, they included the line, "No one's getting fat except Mama Cass." And to Cass's dismay, the nickname, Mama Cass is stuck. While fans embraced it, the mockery behind it was deeply hurtful. Her bandmates crossed an even bigger line when it came to her feelings for Doherty. Cass had joined the Mamas and the Papas mainly because of her unrequited love for him. Sadly, while Cass was silently pining for Doherty, he had begun an affair with Michelle Phillips, the very person who made Cass jealous. When Doherty confessed his affair with Phillips, it devastated Cass. Heartbroken and filled with envy, she famously asked Phillips, "You can have any man in the world. Why take the one man I love?" Cass Elliot's love life was often filled with disappointment and heartbreak, particularly when it came to her unrequited feelings for Denny Doherty. Despite being deeply in love with him, Doherty never returned her affections, leaving Cass emotionally devastated. This pattern of romantic rejection didn't end with Doherty. In 1971, she entered into a whirlwind romance with Donald von Wiedenmann, a journalist and heir to a Bavarian barony. Though their relationship seemed promising at first, it quickly unraveled. Their marriage, which lasted only 2 months, ended in divorce. Cass, who longed for lasting love, was heartbroken once again. Friends close to her later revealed that her deep desire for acceptance, both personally and professionally, often left her vulnerable to unhealthy relationships and emotional turmoil. Despite the betrayal, Cass still held on to a faint hope that Doherty would one day return her feelings. Decades later, Doherty revealed that Cass had once proposed to him during a drunken night, but he hadn't responded because he was too intoxicated. Trying to cope with her heartache, Cass channeled her emotions into music and leaned heavily on dangerous substances, which fueled increasingly reckless behavior. In 1967, Cass traveled to London ahead of the band for a performance, but her time there quickly took a turn. She was detained by London authorities for allegedly stealing bed linens from her apartment. However, rumors swirled that the authorities were actually after her for a more serious matter, linked to one of her many lovers, a man named Pick Dawson, who was also under police scrutiny. In addition to possibly being Cass's lover, Dawson was also rumored to be her supplier. Authorities in London wanted to use accusations against Cass to get to him, and as a result, she spent an entire night behind bars, facing potentially serious charges. However, when she appeared before the magistrate, the charges were dropped due to a lack of evidence. Despite this, the bad press forced the band to cancel a scheduled performance, signaling the beginning of the end of her time with the Mamas and the Papas. With nothing but a broken heart and some harsh lyrics to show for her efforts, Cass began to think about moving on. Following the success of her solo recording of Dream a Little Dream of Me, Cass left the band and embarked on a solo career. Shortly after the breakup of the Mamas and the Papas, she secured a major gig at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, a 3-week, 6-figure deal that had the potential to make her the breakout star of the group. Now a solo act, Cass felt an overwhelming pressure to slim down for her big Las Vegas debut. To prepare, she took on a drastic crash diet, fasting for 4 days a week over the course of 7 months, ultimately losing a third of her 300-pound frame. The consequences for Cass were severe. Though her extreme dieting had slimmed her down significantly, it came at a devastating cost: her health. In the weeks leading up to her first Las Vegas show, she developed acute tonsillitis, hemorrhaging vocal cords, mononucleosis, and a dangerous case of hepatitis, all due to her unhealthy eating habits. As a result, she was completely unprepared for what was supposed to be a major moment in her career. Big stars like Sammy Davis Jr., Jimi Hendrix, and Mia Farrow gathered in Las Vegas to witness her solo debut, but Cass had barely rehearsed because of her deteriorating health. When she finally stepped onto the stage, things quickly fell apart. The star-studded crowd was eager to see her perform, but Cass, weak from her illnesses, struggled through the show. Her voice was so faint that it was barely audible. Her contract required her to perform 2 shows a night, and after a short rest, she attempted a second performance, hoping to redeem herself. Unfortunately, her voice only worsened, and the audience grew more impatient. Many walked out in disappointment, and soon after, Caesar's Palace canceled her contract. To make matters worse, the media harshly criticized her failed debut. Newsweek even likened it to the sinking of the Titanic. This overwhelming failure plunged Cass into a deep depression. Fortunately, Cass had one bright spot in her life. Just before signing her Las Vegas contract, she gave birth to a healthy baby girl named Owen. Despite the turmoil in her love life and career, Cass was deeply committed to being a good mother. She fiercely protected her daughter's privacy, even firing nannies who became too attached in order to maintain control over her family's personal life. Determined to shield her daughter from the media, she kept the news of her child out of the headlines. When the press eventually learned about her baby, Cass refused to reveal the identity of the father, despite the wild media speculation. As Cass's fame grew, so did the darker rumors around her. She was known for hosting big Hollywood parties with both famous and infamous guests. One disturbing rumor says that she once hosted Charles Manson and his group at her home. Although how close she was to Manson is unclear, it was enough for some people to see her differently after his crimes. Following the horrific Manson family massacre that claimed the life of Sharon Tate, John Phillips pointed the finger at Cass, blaming her for having introduced Manson to their circle. He even suggested that she was indirectly responsible for the tragedy. Thankfully, authorities didn't agree with Phillips's accusations. After her Las Vegas show flopped, Cass's solo career hit a standstill, but she remained visible, regularly appearing on television and even hosting her own variety specials, the Mama Cass television program and Don't Call Me Mama Anymore. Still, despite her continued presence in entertainment, Cass yearned for something more than just a middling career. What she truly longed for was love, the one thing that had always eluded her. Unexpectedly, in 1971, she found it. Cass eventually found someone she thought could be the one. It's unclear how she met Donald von Wiedenmann, a journalist and heir to a Bavarian barony, but it seemed like love at first sight. However, it turned into divorce just as quickly. Their marriage ended after only 2 months. Despite this, Cass continued her dangerous dieting habits, and by 1974 it began taking its toll. While waiting backstage at The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, she suddenly collapsed. Medical staff rushed her to the hospital, but Cass brushed off the incident, saying, "My blood sugar level dropped or something, and I just sort of tipped over, but everything was okay." She downplayed the warning signs of her declining health and carried on as if nothing had happened. After her collapse, she completed 2 weeks of concerts at the London Palladium without a break, and instead of resting, she immediately jumped into celebrations, starting with Mick Jagger's 31st birthday party at his Chelsea home. From there, Cass went straight to a brunch hosted in her honor by Georgia Brown, seemingly ignoring her body's cries for rest. However, much to everyone's concern, Cass appeared unwell, constantly blowing her nose, coughing, and struggling to breathe. Despite this, she attended another party that evening, hosted by American entertainment journalist Jack Martin. Her presence at the party left many puzzled. Cass was known for being the life of any gathering, but at Martin's party, she seemed to have lost her usual spark. Although people remarked that she was in good spirits, her sickly appearance worried those around her. Cass brushed it off as exhaustion and decided to head home. This would be her final public appearance. Cass returned to an apartment owned by Harry Nilsson in the upscale Mayfair neighborhood. The next day, when she failed to emerge from her room, her secretary grew suspicious. Upon entering her bedroom, he was devastated to find her lifeless in bed. She had died of an apparent heart attack. Predictably, rumors began to swirl, with many falsely reporting that she had choked on a ham sandwich, a cruel jab at her lifelong struggle with obesity. In a strange twist of fate, 4 years later, The Who's drummer Keith Moon would also die in the same room, at the same age of 32. After Cass's death, her daughter went to live with the singer's younger sister, Leah. Years later, Michelle Phillips finally revealed the identity of Owen's father, Chuck Day, the second guitarist on hits like Monday, Monday, and California Dreamin'. In October 2022, Cass was posthumously awarded a long-overdue star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, attended by her family, friends, and former bandmate Michelle Phillips. In a time when fat phobia was so prevalent that people openly made degrading comments about her appearance in front of millions, Cass faced a particularly difficult battle to be taken seriously and to receive the recognition her immense talent deserved. Cass's impact was undeniable. When the Mamas and the Papas reunited for their induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1998, they performed California Dreamin'. But it took 3 backing singers to even attempt to fill the void left by Cass's powerful voice, and even then they couldn't capture the magic she brought to the group. Though Cass Elliot's life ended tragically at just 32, her influence on music endures. In a time when societal beauty standards were merciless, she overcame harsh scrutiny to leave an indelible mark on the world. Decades after her passing, Cass was finally recognized with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a tribute long overdue for a talent as immense as hers. Even today, when people listen to the Mamas and the Papas, they feel the unmistakable absence of her powerful voice. No matter how many singers try to replace it, no one can ever truly fill the void left by Cass. And that's the remarkable yet tragic story of Cass Elliot. Her voice left an indelible mark on the music world, but her personal battles remind us of the cost of fame. If you enjoyed this deep dive into her life, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more untold stories of legendary figures. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.